Okay, so now we are going to learn some important parts of the brain and how we learn from the brain. So we're going to illustrate the identify the major parts of the brains and the functions, the central core of the brain or the hindbrain, the limbic system, which is the emotional part of the brain, cerebral cortex, which is the information processing area of the brain, and neuroplasticity, being able to make new connections and examine both hemispheres of the brain. So we're on 13. All right, so how do we study the brain? Well, there's electroencephalogram, which is a bunch of electrodes all over the head. They usually put a little, glue there, and you wear it like a cap. And what it does, it records electrical activity inside the brain. So if one part of the brain is more active than other parts, it would show more electrical activity, and it would show it in graphs going up and down. PET scans, or positron emission tomography scans, these are x-rays that have activity shown. So what would normally happen, I believe, is they would drink a solution and then they sit for about a half hour, and then when they use different parts of the brain, that part will light up because it's absorbing more of that glucose that the person just drank. fMRIs, which is an MRI, but an F means functional MRI, and this shows activity by using MRI. It's kind of like a PET scan, but it's for the MRI, which shows a lot more detail. MRIs show, much more clear. You can easily see parts of the brain, and if an activity if certain parts of the brain is more active than the others, then it will light up different colors. The transcranial magnetic stimulator, which is a clicker with a big, huge magnet, and goes click, 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 and if you focus on one area of the brain, it would actually cause a behavioral symptom of the magnetic messing up electrical activity inside the brain. It's actually quite fascinating. If you get a chance, make sure you go look for that. All right, so the central core, all right, which is called the hindbrain. And let me bring up something I was hoping to be able to use to see if I can use it. So interior view, and so right here, all right, this part, let me see which part's first. The medulla, okay. The medulla is right here. It's on the brainstem. And this part of the brain is just simply to keep you alive, basically. It's responsible for heart rate, responsible for blood pressure and respiration, your vital signs, okay? Occasionally there are babies born with no forebrain. It's an empty skull filled with cerebral fluid, but they still have a functioning medulla, all right, which means they're got the vital signs of being alive, but really there's no consciousness or anything like that, and the baby usually dies within a few minutes to a few days. There was another story back in the 1940s in which a farmer was getting dinner ready and cut off the head of this chicken, and somehow the chicken didn't bleed to death, so he had no head, but he missed the medulla, and his chicken lived for about 18 months with no head. They would put little food pellets down his esophagus and water and so forth, but this part right here is just simply to keep you alive. All right, next, the cerebellum. Okay. Okay, well, I can't see it. Cerebellum is this stuff right here, all right, this orange part right here. And this part of the brain is responsible for muscle memory, so being able to get on a bike and do things without giving a second thought, being able to walk, being able to hold a pencil, to be able to write without giving a second thought. It's very responsible for muscle memory. It's also responsible for balance. It's also responsible for making your movements very graceful and not jerky. It's not responsible for starting the movements, but it makes what our movements that you're conducting very graceful and smooth. The reticular formation is inside all these little parts right here, right? We got the thalamus, and right here, hypothalamus. All this is part of the reticular formation, and it's basically for alertness, being able to, if you ever hear your name in the middle of a party, what do you do instinctively without giving a second thought? Well, you turn around and look at it, and that's a reflex. And this is for visual auditory reflexes, so that you would be able to respond to things when they're happening without giving a second thought. All right, next we have the thalamus. This is the thalamus right here. The thalamus is the sensory switchboard. So senses come into the thalamus, like eyesight, hearing, and stuff like that. They go into the thalamus.
Stop it. Stop. No. I promise I did that.
And then the thalamus sends the signal to other areas of the brain. So with vision, it comes into the thalamus, all right, and then the thalamus says, okay, your vision,
for the longest time. This is stupid.
Vision, you go to the occipital lobe, okay, or hearing, you go to the temporal lobe, or touch, you go to the somatosensory cortex, all right, and hypothalamus, which is right down here, okay, this is for rewards, hunger, thirst, and sex. So if it, if you need food, the hypothalamus will make you hungry. If you need water, it'll make you thirsty. And if you want sex, it'll make you want it, I guess. Well, there's other words, but I don't know. All right, the limbic system. It has several different parts. So the limbic system has the hippocampus, which is responsible for memory and for forming new memories. Without it, you wouldn't be able to make any new memories. And it's the amygdala, which are these two things on the side. The amygdala is responsible for fear and rage and for empathy and to read people's emotions on their faces. And we have the thalamus, which I just told you about, and the hypothalamus, which I've already talked about. Okay, so we're on 16. Alright. Okay, so the cerebral cortex, exterior view. Alright, so first part is the frontal lobe, this part right here. As a human being, right, this is probably the most important area of the brain. This is the part that you as a person, as a human being, live. Your personality, your likes, your dislikes, whether or not you believe in God, whether or not, your morals, your political leanings, your thoughts, your be able to control your emotions, Sometimes we get angry, but we don't show our anger. Where does that come from? That comes from the frontal lobe. You don't necessarily need this in order to survive, but without it, you lose your humanity. For example, the Donner Party in the 1800s, we had, they were on their way west, and they got stuck in the mountains, the Rocky Mountains, for a winter, and these people were starving. And so, after a while, what tends to happen is, what happens is that your body has to conserve more energy, and the very first part that it shuts down is this frontal lobe right here, okay? And this frontal lobe, remember, is your morals, your judgments, your taboos. When this shuts off, you become more animalistic. So now, with this part dormant, it becomes, you are able to do things that you would normally not do, like eat another person, to kill another person for food, all right, or eat insects, or do disgusting things you thought you would never do your entire life, because that part's been shut down. And then when you eat, it comes back to life, and it's not normal dormant. Then you feel really bad. You had a barbecue, and so this is the part where humanity lives. This is where you live as an individual. Then you have your parietal lobe right here. Spatial reasoning, touch, pain, and then you have your occipital lobe right here, which is for vision. We know we like to think vision occurs with our eyes, but it does not. Your eyes are tools used by your brain to see. Alright, back here. This is where vision happens. This is where you see images. And then your temporal lobes for storing memories and for hearing. 17, 18. Okay, so you have your motor areas. Okay, your motor cortex is this little strip right here. It goes all the way down. Okay, and this is where we're able to move our arms, move our legs, stuff like that. The left motor cortex controls the right side of your body. The right motor cortex controls the left side of the body. It crisscrosses. The somatosensory cortex, which is right here in the parietal lobe, this little area right here, is where touch and pain. So whenever you feel something or touch something or hot, cold, getting a paper cut, it goes to this area of the brain, and each area, this part is responsible for a certain part of your brain. So if you have a stroke right here, you would be, you feel no pain. All right. If you have a stroke over here, you might be paralyzed in certain parts of your body, depending on where the damage happened. Association areas is where whatever sensations turn into perceptions. Your images are put together to form one image that means something right here, and same thing with all your sight. By the way, all your senses go through the thalamus except for smell. Smell, this goes directly to the brain, which is around here somewhere. All right. All right. So we're at 18, 19. Neuroplasticity is the ability for neurons to always continue growing. When someone has brain damage because of a stroke or accident or some kind of hard hit to the head, you may have to relearn certain things as if you were a baby, relearning how to walk, because those areas are damaged, and now your brain has to make new connections to be able to walk again. So really, what your brain could do is rewire itself in a way to where it can relearn. You have to start over, basically what that means for a lot of people. Hemispheres, there's the left and the right. There's certain things in one hemisphere that you don't find on the right. For example, the ability to speak, all right, to be able to talk, is on the left frontal lobe. The left, only on the left side. It's called the Broca's area. To be able to understand language is on the left temporal lobe. Okay. So if this is damaged, you can't talk, the Broca's area. If the Wernicke's area is damaged, then you can't understand people talking. On the right side, the ability to recognize faces, to put everything together to form one image, it resides on the front side of your brain. All right. I hope this helps. This has only got a minute or two left, but there's so much more to the brain than this. If you get a chance, continue to do your own research. Look up a video about Phineas Gage to properly understand the frontal lobe, or have a better understanding anyways, how responsible or how big the frontal lobe is as far as you as a person. Mr. Leva lives right here in the frontal lobe. This is where I reside as a human being, my personalities, my likes, dislikes, all those other things that I think are very important, my morals, my judgments, my taboos, who I love, all these things right here in the frontal lobe. So remember, take a look at it.